We're here in the south of France to ride Husqvarna's brand new Svartpilen 801. The most exciting thing about this bike is that this bike has just adopted the LC8C engine that's also shared in the 790 KTM Duke. The big question is, why did it take Husqvarna so long to get this twin-cylinder engine in this awesome naked bike? So does adding that twin-cylinder engine completely make this a different motorcycle than the 701 that came before it? And I think the answer is yes, so let's find out why. First, let's talk about the engine. The 799cc LC8C engine, which like we said, is the same engine that is shared in the 790 Duke. So this is the first time that Husqvarna has used a twin-cylinder engine in their naked bike line, which is really cool. Now, the thing that you need to know about this engine is it's not the bigger engine that's in the new 890s and stuff like that. This is the smaller engine, but in this format, it's a great choice. The engine makes 105 horsepower and 64 pound-feet of torque. And this bike only weighs 399 pounds, so the engine is a great choice. And compared to the 701, which we really liked, this engine is a completely different animal. It makes more power. It's just such a smooth, nice, balanced engine. Everything about this engine just fits into a naked bike, and it really brings this bike into different competition than this Husky's ever had before. In the past, the 701 really didn't have any other direct competitors. It was kind of a unicorn inside the class. It was a single cylinder naked bike. It was a very unique motorcycle. But now, all of a sudden, by adding this twin cylinder engine, this parallel twin, Husky has opened the door to a whole bunch of different competitors. So we're really curious to see how it stacks up against the other bikes in the class. Today on the road, we did all sorts of stuff. We started out in the morning riding some really tight second gear, maybe third gear corners, just on, just twisty roads, kind of narrow roads. And the engine's just awesome. It just snaps off the corner. And it comes with a standard quick shifter, which is an up and down quick shifter. And just, rowing through the gears, flicking out of the corners, this engine just pulls hard. It's just a completely different engine than the bike that preceded it. And that's a good thing. This bike is really fun. And I think this bike now has just come to a completely different level in terms of who it can compete with. So we really enjoyed it. And then later in the afternoon, we were on some much faster flowing roads, whereas the older bike maybe didn't have the top end power, it didn't have the top end performance because it was a single. This bike just keeps pulling and pulling and pulling. And as an overall package, we were super happy with the engine and super happy that Husqvarna made this decision. And like we said, we just wonder why they didn't do it earlier in the past. Now let's talk about the electronics. Because of course this bike has a full package of electronics like all of the KTM and Husqvarna bikes do. So this bike has a 6-axis IMU, has ride-by-wire throttle. This bike has 4 modes. It has a dynamic mode, it has a street mode, a sport mode, and a rain mode. And we played around with those a little bit today and went through the menus and ended up settling on the dynamic. The throttle response is super crisp and really fun to ride. And then we set it up with the supermoto mode on the brakes, which we'll get to more in a minute. But in that setup, the bike is just really fun. I mean, this bike has just become a complete hooligan bike. We had lots of little rises. The bike would wheelie off those. You can go into the pod here, which is a new pod on this motorcycle compared to the adventure models. And the access to the menus is super easy to navigate. Getting in and changing modes on the fly or changing settings on the fly, super easy. The screen is brand new. The TFT display is new and has an anti-glare coating on it. And accessing those menus and getting in there and making those changes was really easy. One of the other things that we like is those modes are sticky. So you would go in and set up your dynamic mode and have all your settings where you wanted. And when you cycled the key, it would stay in that mode. So when you would turn the bike back on, you would be able to just be in the mode that you were on. The electronics have a lot of options. You can go in there and you can control your engine brake. You can control your TC settings and your anti-wheelie and your MTC and all those things. The ones that we rode today has the optional dynamic mode, which is about $250. And so that's an addition, like on most of the KTMs and Huskies now, you've got to pay for that. Our bike didn't have the cruise control, which is another option, which is about $490. And the cruise control not only comes with a setup, a different pod here, but it also has a cheater button that you can set up custom, that you could cycle just to a mode or a particular TC setting, or you can customize that completely. But our bikes came with the dynamic mode, which I would highly recommend. recommend that anybody that buys this bike would do that. Now let's talk about the chassis a little bit. One of the advantages to this bike is it comes with the WP suspension, which is adjustable. So at the rear, you've got preload and rebound adjustment, and at the front, you've got compression and rebound, but no preload. But compared to the other competition that this bike is going up against, most of those bikes, like the new Suzuki GSX-8S, don't have adjustable suspension at all. They've got preload only on the rear. So this suspension is much higher end than some of the competition. And out on the roads that we were on today, we kind of hit a little bit of everything. There's nice smooth stuff, there's a lot of bumps in the road, and the suspension was very good. And we didn't play with clickers or anything today because the standard base settings were really good and we were totally happy with that. But overall, I think that the suspension package on this is really good. And then the brakes were totally good. They're the J-Juan brakes, which is a subsidiary of Brembo. You've got adjustable clutch and brake levers, really nice little features. Overall, the chassis is really nimble and fun, but yet it's still stable, but it's lively. Like today on some of the roads that we were on that were tight and twisty, you can just get into the corner, you have full confidence, come out of the corners, little wheelies and stuff, and it was just a total blast. But overall, chassis performance, I think that this engine and this chassis puts this bike into a completely different light than the bike that it replaces, and we love that about it. Now let's talk about ergonomics. This morning when I got on this bike, the very first thing I noticed when we pulled out of the parking lot was how comfortable the seating position is. There's a lot of leg room. The bar reach is super neutral. The seat is great. It's got a little kick up at the back here. I think it gives you plenty of support, but riding all day today, I never got cramped. I thought that the leg position was great. So over the long term, you can spend an entire day on this bike and it's a sporting riding position, but it never gets cramped. It never makes you feel like you need to take a break from it. Totally comfortable. You don't have much wind protection, but it's a naked bike. You know that, right? You've got a little windscreen. There's some options for that as well. But overall, I thought that the ergonomics were really nice. For a naked bike, it's really nice because around town, it's got a 32.4-inch seat height. So it's pretty easy to touch the ground. You've got control of the bike. You feel really comfortable, but then you get out on a sporting road and you can get into a really nice attack position and ride it like a sport bike, which is great. In the past, we loved the Svartpilen 701, but I think that this is a really big change for Husky, and I think bringing this bike into the twin cylinder world has been a really good decision on their part. This bike comes in at $10,899, which is a little bit more. It's about $1,500 more than the 790 Duke, but Husky's got their distinct styling. I think this bike is really attractive. The finishes are great. Everything on this bike looks sharp, from the seat finishes to the subframe, which is an aluminum subframe, and everything just looks really top notch. And so you're getting something for that $10,899. But like I said before, I think that this bike now has so many different competitors that people are going to be comparing it against. And I really liked how this bike performed overall today. Just had a great ride, and think that anybody looking for a parallel twin naked bike has to look at this bike because it's a really, really fun model. The change to twin power is the thing that makes this bike awesome. And so we're totally happy with that. So that's it here from the south of France, riding the Svartpilen 801. And if you like what you see, please comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching.